Paul Scholes makes Erik ten Hag sack prediction after Manchester United 4-0 hammering. Man United were defeated 4-0 by Crystal Palace in the Premier League on Monday, and Erik ten Hag faces an uncertain future. Paul Scholes believes Crystal Palace's 4-0 hammering of Manchester United on Monday night could be the final nail in the coffin for manager Erik ten Hag. United's defeat at Selhurst Park was their 13th of the Premier League season, a new club record, and Chelsea and Newcastle have leapfrogged them in the table. The pressure has mounted on ten Hag throughout the season. After an excellent first season for the Dutchman, United have spectacularly regressed and face the possibility of competing in the Europa Conference League next season, if they manage to qualify for Europe. United have gains against Arsenal, Newcastle and Brighton remaining in the league and could end strongly, but that seems unlikely given the performance against Crystal Palace. The showing at Selhurst Park was embarrassing, and Scholes likened it to the 4-1 defeat against Watford in November 2021, which was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's final game in charge. Tonight felt like the final nail in the coffin, Scholes told Premier League Productions. There was a lack of know-how from the team, a lack of effort, which is the big disappointing thing. Going to a team like Crystal Palace, don't get me wrong, they're doing well, but whatever situation United are in, they shouldn't be going there and losing 4-0, it felt like the end. If it is the end, I'm not sure, because what's out there at the minute? I felt he might get another year and work for a club that has calmed down a little bit by the new owners. It just doesn't feel like it now. Who's there to replace him? Now with Thomas Tuchel saying he's leaving Bayern Munich, it doesn't create a bigger problem for him, ten Hag, because they are there to see. But it feels like he's on borrowed time, and it feels like the end. I remember Ole Gunnar Solskjaer losing at Watford away, and it felt very similar to me, it felt like the end. Tuchel will leave Bayern Munich at the end of the season and has been linked with United, while Jose Mourinho is also open to a return to manage his former club. Paul Scholes names Manchester United caretaker manager candidate for the rest of the season. The former Man United midfielder no longer believes Erik ten Hag is the right man for the job, speaking after the 4-0 Crystal Palace defeat. Paul Scholes described current Manchester United assistant Steve McClaren as the best coach I ever had, as the former United midfielder left the blame for the club's current struggles squarely at Erik ten Hag's door. Scholes believes that McClaren has had no impression on this team as a coach, but said the former Derby, Nottingham Forest and Newcastle manager should take the reins until the end of the season. Joined by fellow ex-United player Michael Owen on punditry duty for United's 4-0 defeat to Crystal Palace, Scholes suggested McClaren as the ideal candidate to become United's caretaker manager, as both he and Owen called for ten Hag to be sacked. There is no way his fingerprints are anywhere near that team. No way. He is a brilliant coach, said Scholes on McClaren. And that team is not being coached at all. The former United and England star then recalled his days playing under McClaren, who was Sir Alex Ferguson's number 2 at Old Trafford between 1999 and 2001. He said, "Everyone thinks we were a great team that attacked everyone. But sometimes we played against better teams, and Steve McClaren put training sessions on to make sure you stopped other teams, getting your distances right, the angles right, especially in centre midfield and all across midfield. He's got no impression on that team. The manager must not be letting him touch that team." Owen had previously launched into a long rant about why ten Hag must be sacked. The former Liverpool striker said, "I've said it for a long time. I've sat here for quite a while and I've been saying that ten Hag is not the right man for this job. I've said it for ages and ages. He simply cannot manage the team next season. I almost wonder now, they've got a cup final and they've got a few important games that could mean European football next year or not. At some point you've got to make a decision. They're going to get absolutely hammered by Manchester City, they're going to get annihilated. In fact, Arsenal will smash them to bits at Old Trafford, Newcastle will probably beat them, and I wouldn't even fancy them going to Brighton either. They might not get anything out of the rest of the season if they are playing like that." Jose Mourinho wants to manage Manchester United for a second time. Erik ten Hag's position is insecure at Man United, who have assessed potential candidates to replace the Dutchman. Jose Mourinho would love to manage Manchester United again, but the club does not want to reappoint the Portuguese. Mourinho has told confidants he would walk to Manchester to manage United for a second time, having been sacked by the club in December 2018. The two-time Champions League winner is a friend of United co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe, but Mourinho is not expecting an approach from his former club. Incumbent United manager Erik presided over a Premier League-era record 13th loss of the season in the 4-0 thrashing by Crystal Palace on Monday night. United are 8th in the Premier League table and could finish outside the top 7 for the first time since 1990. The 18 defeats United have suffered this term is their most in a season since 1977-78. Although United face Manchester City in the FA Cup final on May 25, Ten Hag's position is insecure amid a dreadful campaign in which United were eliminated from European competitions altogether before Christmas and their League Cup defence ended at the second hurdle. United have assessed possible replacements for the Dutchman, who has not received definitive backing from Ratcliffe since he completed his 27.7% stakeholding in February. Mourinho replaced Louis van Gaal in May 2016 and guided United to League Cup and Europa League triumphs in his first season. United rose to second in the Premier League table and reached the FA Cup final in Mourinho's second season, but he was then denied backing in the 2018 summer transfer window. The former Chelsea manager's most recent job was at Roma, whom he guided to Europa Conference League glory in 2022. Roma reached the Europa League final last season but were beaten by Sevilla in a penalty shootout. Ranking the most embarrassing Man United defeat since Sir Alex Ferguson's retirement. It's been a tough decade for United since Sir Alex retired. Manchester United's recent defeat against Crystal Palace highlights their decade-long decline from the formidable force under Sir Alex Ferguson's tenure. Losses to Everton, West Brom, and Bristol City have further exposed United's weaknesses. Manchester United have become increasingly familiar with the bitter taste of defeat over the last decade, often tipping into the humbling realm of humiliation. It's clear that United are a pale imitation of the formidable force constructed during Sir Alex Ferguson's 27 years in charge, and Erik ten Hag is the latest manager who looks set to fail to follow in the Scotsman's footsteps. The Dutch coach is hardly the only successor to stumble in Ferguson's shadow. Every single permanent United manager since the legendary figure's retirement has suffered at least one chastening loss. From dismal cup exits to toe-curling European defeats, there is plenty of competition to feature in the unhonourable reel of United's failings since 2013. Here are the most embarrassing defeats since Ferguson announced his retirement more than 10 years ago. Ranking factors. Factors taken into consideration when ranking these defeats are as follows. Margin of defeat. The scoreboard has the biggest sway over the conclusions drawn from any game. Opponent quality. Getting turned over by a struggling side or a team from outside the Premier League adds to the pain. Embarrassment inflicted. Some losses can be courageous, but these are invariably calamitous. Manchester United 0-1 Everton. Sir Alex Ferguson chose David Moyes to be his own successor in the Manchester United dugout, and it's fair to say that decision backfired. Moyes looked out of his depth for almost his entire time in charge, and a painful reminder of that was when his old club Everton came calling to Old Trafford and earned their first win at the ground in 21 years thanks to a late Brian Oviedo goal. The reverse fixture in April, which ended in a 2-0 win for the Toffees, was the final nail in the Scotsman's coffin and saw his 10-month reign come to an end. Manchester United 0-1 West Brom. The 2017-18 season is actually one of United's more successful of the last decade, as Jose Mourinho guided the club to second place in the table, which he later called one of his greatest achievements in management. An indication of what the Portuguese meant came towards the end of the season when bottom place